questions to Amy, our new chair, and we will get to as many as we can. So Amy, we first met a couple of years ago. This is your third year on the board of directors, but we actually first met a few years ago when Fitbit was doing some really exciting work around using Fitbits for research purposes. You were doing some really neat work with NIH and other hospitals around the country. And that's how you kind of came into the eHI orbit, and we got to know each other well, and you're doing just great work there. So I don't know that people know, not everybody knows who you are and what you're doing and Fitbit's role in the world of healthcare. So could you speak a little bit about that and let folks know who you are and what Fitbit's doing?
Absolutely. I'm so glad that we had the opportunity to connect there because it's really impactful to both me and the organization. I lead our health solutions division at Fitbit, which is now part of Google as of last week. As you said, it's been a busy few weeks in many ways. Our health solutions division has really been around since almost the very beginning of Fitbit and from our evolution. And it's really our work with employers, health plans, health systems, institutions, really think about population health and bringing our services and solutions and integrating into the healthcare ecosystem to help with better outcomes, increased engagement, and a more efficient healthcare system, so lowering costs. And so really important is bringing those consumer solutions, but working with and integrating into the existing healthcare ecosystem. So that's a little bit about what my team does. We do that from both a go-to-market as well as from a product standpoint. And so think of us as kind of the B2B2C arm of Fitbit and now as part of Google.
Can you talk a little bit, you've done a lot of really interesting work around COVID-19 over the last year. Can you speak a little bit about that so folks can understand?
Absolutely. I mean, we really, of course, on the onset of COVID-19 and learning more about it, which we're still learning and discovering every day, and we really felt we had both a responsibility, an obligation, and an opportunity to be relevant and to help our users during this time, whether they're members of a health plan or employees of an employer that we're working with or a consumer. And so we really said, where can we add value to the system? We don't want to add more noise. And so we looked at a couple of different things. One was we formed a research consortium with Stanford and Scripps. And we did that to help accelerate research around COVID-19, bring more brilliant individuals and organizations together to help pool resources and pool information to help learn as much as we could quickly about this. And that was based on some former research that we had worked on with Scripps, where we were looking at early signs of, in this case, flu. So kind of, flu detection and flu research. And so we were looking at that, and there were health signals, personalized health metrics that then really helped individuals identify that they might be coming down with the flu or an early illness prior to actually showing signs and symptoms. And so what we wanted to do was to apply that then to COVID-19 research to see if those same signals and personalized health biometrics would actually apply there. So we launched a Fitbit COVID-19 study. And what we looked at was breathing rate, resting heart rate variability, kind of all vital signs that can be tracked by a Fitbit device and others, and be able to look at an algorithm to help look at, because of the high pre-symptomatic and asymptomatic caseload, be able to identify those, and as an early warning, detection of you might want to stay home or you might want to get a test, and not put others at risk if your body is starting to show those early illness indicators. So that's been really successful. We've done some preprint and now some printed publications around that I'm sure we can share in the chat after this if folks are interested in reading the results of those. We also turned that into a program for our employers and health plans, which we call Ready for Work. And so this is applying some of what we've learned there, as well as kind of daily check-in and emotional well-being tools. So as we all know, the mental toll, that's kind of the second or third wave as part of COVID-19, bringing those into a whole person-centric approach and providing those tools in a Ready for Work solution for our employers and for our health plan partners. So really excited about all of the work that we've been able to do, all while working virtually and remotely, during this time. And we've really just had some great reception that we believe can really help prevent that asymptomatic and pre-symptomatic spread, provide valuable tools to end users to help to understand their personal biometrics a little bit more.
That's really fascinating, actually. And Sarah, let's make sure we send out links to that article if we could through the chat room or later today after the session, because I think people would definitely be interested in that research. It's great. It'd be great to be able to kind of foresee when you're going to get COVID. That's fascinating.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, incredible work. So I have to ask about the recent announcement of Google acquiring Fitbit, which I guess was last week. So I know that everybody's going to be kind of interested. What does that mean for Fitbit? What's the acquisition mean? What's that? Tell us.
Sure, absolutely. So we're really excited, of course, to be part of Google and see this integration as a really exciting opportunity for us to continue to accelerate and advance Fitbit's mission. Our mission has always been to help everyone lead a healthier, more active life by providing data, guidance, and inspiration to help them reach their goals. And so we really believe that a partnership with Google is going to help us innovate more quickly, provide more choices to consumers, and make even better products to help accelerate that, and so that we can continue to have that deep and really meaningful impact on well-being and kind of the pillars of health that we think about, which are around activity, sleep, nutrition, and mindfulness. And I will say that while we think that there's a lot of opportunities that will come from the synergies we have with Google, many of the things that our users have valued about us will remain the same, right? Those will remain unchanged. Our commitment to, accessible, affordable devices, to a really consumer-centric experience. Those are our core tenets to how we handle privacy. All of those things remain core to who Fitbit is and will continue as part of Google. So it's really an opportunity to help us accelerate and further advance that initial mission that, as an innovator in this space 13 years ago, has remained unchanged, and we remain diligent in helping our support our users to better health.
One of the things, and one of the reasons I'm so thrilled about you taking the reins for the board of directors, is because you're from this unique organization. And I think one of the things that COVID-19 has really brought about and emphasized for us is this shift to virtual care and remote care and using devices and things in a different way. So in a way, COVID-19 has brought a lot of opportunity to healthcare in that we can now use these unique devices and technology. Can you talk a little bit about some of the new opportunities that exist for technology companies in healthcare?
Absolutely. You hate to talk about pandemic silver linings, but I do think, much like Dr. Turney mentioned, acceleration of virtual care as an acceptable and affordable and exciting way that we continue to provide, that balance of quality care along with, efficiency and affordable, as well as, efficacy, and kind of balancing all of those. So I think there's some really exciting opportunities there. I continue to believe, and we at Fitbit believe, that technology like wearables can continue to play an increasingly important role in helping to bridge that gap between your visit to your doctor or a clinical environment and your day-to-day life. And that's things like making, what was formerly invisible visible. So how do you understand those personal health metrics? When we innovated in things like heart rate and making that accessible and affordable on the wrist a couple of years ago. Prior to that, people didn't really have an understanding of the resting heart rate. It was hard to get, or only if you were an elite athlete or in a clinical environment might you have access to that as a tool. So really helping to make those data points not only visible, but also translating them and they make them easy to understand for someone who's not in a healthcare profession. So I think that's a really important point. It obviously applies to the early illness, as we talked about for COVID-19 or flu or other research, but also just in better health and kind of proactive management of health. And another area that I'm really excited about is advancements in digital clinical trials, and particularly support of senior care as well. So certainly when you think about digital clinical trials, that was a great need over the past year, both around COVID, but also to advance other types of research, whether that be, cancer or flu or all sorts of applicability. And Jen, as you mentioned, it's where you and I first met, was around us supporting research and clinical trials. I think that's a really important piece where we can continue to do that both equitably and fairly, reaching rural systems that would have been challenging to reach, that Dr. Turney mentioned, and also helping to accelerate enrollment in digital trials, which is one of the longest polls often in kind of launching that and reaching scale. So I think there's a real opportunity to bring in technology to help with digital clinical trials, which will help advance research overall. So whether it be kind of remote fitness when we're all trying to stay active and healthy at home, virtual consults, or digital care and clinical styles, and we really believe that wearables can really help complement the healthcare system. And that's really our role, is how can we provide useful data and information and experiences to both end users as well as those clinicians to help more effective quality care.
So we are celebrating our 20-year anniversary this year.
Congratulations. It's
share
exciting.
that with everybody here. So when we first started eHI 20 years ago, and we talked about multi-stakeholders and connecting all the players in healthcare, we spent a lot of time talking about connecting doctors to hospitals and hospitals to labs. And we focused a lot on EHRs and EHR data, which is still, of course, very important. But now we've got all of these new players at the table. Fitbit, Google, Aprovita, Best Buy, CVS Health, all of these really unique new organizations are now part of our circle. And the role that they play in healthcare is, now recognized as really critical. So we have these new groups kind of brought to the table, and there's a lot of innovation going on right now. So can you talk a little bit about some of the unique perspectives that these groups could bring to the table that maybe we don't have with the traditional players?
Sure. One, I think I have a strong belief that the role of technology and healthcare technology in particular is to assist and aid and not replace the healthcare system. It is to integrate and form strong partnerships and figure out how we can best work with the existing system to help it work more efficiently, right? Back in that triple aim of kind of helping with outcomes and efficacy and cost. And sharing in all of those. And so I believe strongly in a kind of partnered approach to be able to help integrate into the healthcare system. Again, how do you make what happens inside those four walls of the clinical system help throughout that period? How do you help individuals take a more proactive role in health, which I think is really important. And so, I think what's important and what we can learn from each other is we have different paces is something I've noticed of bringing things forward. So pace of innovation or pace at which things can move. And I think we can learn from each other on that, right? So I think the healthcare system can learn to maybe think about innovating more quickly, but still balancing that safety and efficacy. And I think the kind of some of the early health tech or health startups and those in digital health can really think about how can we better integrate into those existing tools and make them work better. And so I think that's something we can learn from each other. I also think that there's a great opportunity in what I see as a need today, which is to, how do you move from pilot and a proof point into something that's a broader rollout? And I think that continues to be a struggle for a lot of organizations. And I think, again, that takes a partnership across regulatory environments and government, as well as kind of the healthcare, more traditional healthcare system, and these digital health innovators all working together on how do you balance those three, and what can we learn from each other, what's working and what's not, to bring that triple aim into reality. So I think that's really what I'm excited about, and what I actually really enjoy about eHI is bringing those various stakeholders together to have those challenging conversations, but all with the consumer or the patient, the end user, as kind of the core of that experience.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point in your comment that they sometimes move at different paces. You know, one of the things we've seen about solutions working or not working in the past is that they haven't always been able, Silicon Valley hasn't always been able to fit their solutions into the complex workflow that providers have. Sometimes there might be strict regulations that they're not familiar with in healthcare. So I think you're right. There is a lot that these two groups can learn from each other. How can a group like eHealth Initiative help advance that conversation?
I think there's so many ways, and we're already starting to see that. The first is just a safe, exciting spot to learn and from each other, right? So a multi-stakeholder group bringing, and I think that's pretty unique to eHI, at least in my experience, of bringing together, again, those healthcare providers, health technology or digital health companies, and government and regulations to have those difficult conversations and to learn from each other about the regulatory environment that may be prohibiting some of the things from moving more quickly, or how could we work together to help reduce barriers to entry, whether those are technological barriers or government or regulation barriers. And so I think there's just convening in a single spot all of those stakeholders to help identify what those challenges are. Is it interoperability? Is it regulation? Is it translation of data? What are those barriers to entry, and how can we bring those together? And then I think there's also, and certainly saw this with all of the coverage and work in COVID-19 this past year, is how staying informed and helping to advance critical areas of those changing regulations, right? So, think back to March, which seems like in some ways a long time ago, and in some ways not so much. March of 2020, when many of us very suddenly kind of had to stop and cease things the way that we were doing them. And I think eHI played a really critical role in helping to understand and share out knowledge, both in terms of what was changing in the regulatory environment around EUAs and telehealth changes to be able to support users during that time and consumers, as well as the changing regulatory environment, but also just what was happening. I think you gave Fitbit an opportunity to talk about early illness detection, others around how do we combat the spread, what's going on in rural healthcare systems like Dr. Turney's, what's happening kind of across the various aspects of the industry, and what can we learn from this for the future, and what can we apply right now. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity to bring those groups together, but also to help advance the education and that information sharing that just can be a challenge, particularly in times of crisis.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you a couple of the same questions I asked Dr. Turney. There's a new administration coming in, President Biden's administration. So, we've certainly got an opportunity here to possibly change regulations. What would be, the 2 or 3 things that you would want to see changed if you could wave a magic wand and change rules? What would you want to see happen?
Sure. I think the balance of that innovation and that safety and efficacy is a really important one. So helping to help balance those out. And I think there's some really great examples of some work that's been done in that area. All of Us, which is funded by the NIH, and some grant work there. MTech, which Fitbit was awarded a grant for earlier this year, is a great example of a government and industry program. And that was to accelerate our research around COVID-19 and early detection. And so kind of partnering with groups to be able to help accelerate that research in a balancing that safety and efficacy, and not at all balancing, or compromising on quality, but just helping to advance that innovation with support and partnership of regulatory environments. I think another great one, FDA launched a SAMHSA program, so software as a medical device, which Fitbit is also a part of. I think those types of programs are really aimed at how do we maintain safety and efficacy as our primary aim, and that quality, but also help accelerate innovation for, less invasive or more proactive health solutions. And so I think if there was one thing, I think it kind of, I'm circulating around a central theme here maybe, but I think that there's an opportunity to help bring those different paces of innovation together to help accelerate overall, right? Sometimes they say you have to slow down to speed up to do more good work. And I think, this is a case where I think if we all pulled together around and identified those core root problems, that there may be a way to help us accelerate that innovation even more quickly.
Fantastic. And I am, as I mentioned to Dr. Turney, really thrilled that we have these back-to-back women leaders for our chair of board of directors. And your accomplishments as a female executive are just very well known. You work for one of the most famous tech companies, and this chair of this wonderful board of directors. But again, we see 13 to 20% of leadership positions in healthcare, and in tech it's less than 10% of executives are women as well. So what's the problem, and what's your advice for female executives?
Sure. Well, I'm thrilled to be part of eHI and to help advance that. I also noticed as we were introducing the team earlier today that you've got a strong female leadership team too. So really excited to see that as well. I think we're making progress. It's slow, and I think that there are a couple of things, and I'll echo kind of a little bit of what Dr. Turney said. But one, I would say I think there's a lack of mentorship and, more importantly, sponsorship of female leaders or up and coming, potential leaders, next generation leaders within organizations. And I think that's something that all of us as a call to action can do. I've had the great pleasure of having many mentors and sponsors, both male and female. So I say that's something that's applicable to everyone, and there's kind of that mentorship is kind of providing guidance and advice, and that sponsorship, of course, is around really helping them to reach their goals and accelerate that and championing them within the organization or with whatever their next move is. And I think there's more work to be done on that in that area. Much like Dr. Turney, I love that she said this, kind of, and I'll paraphrase a little bit, but kind of adapting, but staying true to your leadership and your passion and your vision, right? I think there is a way to lead with empathy and collaboration, and maybe some traits that are at least inherent for me, if not all females. And I think that is, you can continue to do that and balance that within an organization, because both tech and healthcare, as you mentioned, lack female leadership at the top. Lots of, leaders in up and coming talent. That's not for a lack of talent. Mm-hmm. So I think adapting, but staying true to your style of leadership, I think is a really important piece. And I think that's something that Dr. Turney kind of really hit on as well. And then lastly, I think, surrounding yourself by leadership teams who help to balance your strengths and help to bring those forward and are there to be champions of your areas of passion and your growth. And I think those things collectively can help us. And I think, all bundled in, I would say it comes down to a lot of resilience. It comes down to just, I'm here for the long haul. This is a marathon, not a sprint, and kind of slowly chipping away at things that are important to you and your vision and your passion, and really inner resilience and inner belief that you can add value and have impact at scale. And then surrounding yourself with mentors and sponsors, as well as leaders in your organization who will help you achieve those goals and kind of share that vision and passion.
Mm-hmm. And when you say mentors versus sponsors, can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So the way I would think about a mentor, of course, and hopefully we've all had the opportunity to have great mentors. And again, this male and female throughout your career and leadership experience. But I think, a mentor is someone who maybe you go to who is not within your direct, maybe, but not necessarily direct, even within your organization or within your your company. And so it's really looking to someone who can provide, who's someone's career you admire, who you are interested in kind of learning from and helping you kind of set on perhaps your career path. And I think that can be multidisciplinary. I've had the opportunity to mentor people who are in, research science that I can't help them at all with the subject matter experts, but that's not necessarily the kind of mentorship they need. When I think about sponsorship, I think about advocacy. So it's really about how do you advocate for that individual within the organization, recognizing that they are a talent or that they have unique insights that can be shared. And so I think that is really, to me, the difference between mentorship is kind of awareness and learning and helping at an individual level, and sponsorship is more about advocacy within an organization or within an industry.
Great. Well, I know that we have a couple of questions, so I want to get to those, Amy.
Right.
So we've got a great question from Ronnie from, I think HDMS, Ronnie, I hope I'm right. Is Fitbit doing any work on indicators for some mental health conditions?
That's a great, it's a great question, because obviously mental health, again, is a really strong, you can tell I'm live. Sorry about the dog in the background.
It was mine as well. So
that's the advantage of when you get the live, there's always sorts of background noise, particularly from home. So yes, I mean, I think when it comes to mental health, obviously are really important and impacting all of us in some way, especially during COVID. We had done several years of research around looking at stress and mental well-being, because it is one of the 4 pillars that Fitbit thinks about. And just last fall, we released our most advanced smartwatch ever. It's called Fitbit Sense, and it actually has a measurement of your stress. So I want to make sure we're clear around stress versus mental health is a very a discipline in its own, but we are able to measure stress, and essentially what we're looking at is a little bit more of an advanced lie detector. So we're looking at electrodermal activity, which is called EDA, which is what your wrist might tell you about how you're feeling in this moment. So I'd be curious to see what mine is saying while we're active live here with questions, but no, it's looking at kind of moisture levels in your wrist, to your heart rate, to other variable biometrics to help look at that. More importantly, though, than just looking about that, is that we're making you aware of that, but then we're offering you tools based on your individual metrics to help you bring those back into line. So we offer kind of 2 and 5 minute kind of electrodermal activity exercises right on the smartwatch. And what it's doing is actually measuring the change in in those biometrics during that period. So you're covering your watch for 2 minutes, and you're maybe taking a few minutes to breathe more deeply and follow an exercise and a meditation. To bring down those metrics more into, kind of your personal standards and norms. And so I think that's a really exciting innovation, first of its kind, really around measurement of this on the wrist. And then we supplement that with many tools around mental health and well-being. So mindfulness exercises. But I think the opportunity where we're not quite here yet as an industry is to be able to look at some of those early indicators of mental health. So changing sleeping patterns, changing eating habits, changing exercise or activity habits. All of those things can be indicators of, both illness, but also of mental health illness as well. And so I think there's a real opportunity, and this is where partnerships and integrations with the healthcare system could help here, would be able to share those metrics with someone who's providing mental health resources, and being able to kind of look at those trends and help identify. We know that one of the best exercises for mental health literally is exercise, right? Is getting out and getting fresh air and getting awareness. And so how can you build those into a day with the support of a clinician? And so I think there's a real opportunity to continue to innovate in that area, but we're at the early start of that mission.
Well, I know you're going to get a lot of inquiries from different folks who are doing a lot of work around mental health. So point them at Amy. I'm sure she'd be interested in connecting with folks. So again, that's why we have this network here. We're here for everybody if you want to connect with other organizations. And we went through this time really quickly. So I'm going to just end by saying, Amy, is there anything you want to tell our members, to kick us off on the next 2 days, something that, we should be thinking about, or thoughts as we look forward to the year?
Yeah, I mean, I think, one thing that I've been thinking a lot about over the last year, because we've all had a lot more time to think and reflect, is really about how can we take the learnings of being in a pandemic and everything that we've learned, the good and the bad, right? So the quick innovation and move to vaccines and applying things that we learned 10 years ago to current circumstances, but also some of the trends that we've seen, obviously with great impact on the healthcare system and strains there. How can we apply those to 2, 3, 5, and 10 years down the road, post-pandemic? How can we apply, and how do we keep some of what we innovated on during this period, and how can we foster that continued innovation once we go back to some, and I hate this term, but new normal, or whatever that looks like in the future? Is how do we maintain and foster that area of innovation? Great example for Fitbit, of course, is we really quickly responded to COVID-19 and our work around both research, but also bringing a product to market. How do we make sure that those products continue to have staying power? And that's virtual care or telehealth, looking at early signs of illness and more proactive understanding of our health. But I would challenge all of us to kind of, as we go through the next couple of days, as we talk about, COVID-19 response and social determinants of health and everything that's happened over the last year, is like, what are those lessons learned that we think are going to be applicable in the future? And how can we apply those, again, across a multi-stakeholder organization to help us continue with those things that worked really well, even as we move forward? And how do we advance those innovations? So to me, that's, I think I want to always step back and reflect and do a retro on every product that we launch. And that's kind of the retro, I think, from this past year, is what do we take from this that helps us not go back to, normal, but a better normal, and something that says, we learned a lot during that period and we're applying that to the future.
I love that. That's great. Well, wonderful words of inspiration to lead us through the next 2 days. And thank you for taking the time today. And I want to remind folks, we're going to start again tomorrow at 12. We'll be talking about health disparities, and then we'll be talking about virtual care with some really powerful, wonderful panels. So join us tomorrow at noon, and everybody have a great day. Thank you.